One of the more haunting movies ever made, especially horror movies, fairy tale, folklore tales coming out of Japan. It's the 1968 classic Kuroneko. Let's take a look at it, review it, and analyze it, and let me argue for why you should watch it if you never have, coming up next. Kuroneko has the feel of a folktale. You go read about it on the internet. You'll see that the translation is supposedly The Black Cat in the Bamboo Forest. The movie is a samurai tale, but it really actually is a very dark samurai tale, and it might be attacking traditional Japanese films about samurai, especially those that valorize samurai. And one of the targets here may actually be Akira Kurosawa, the beloved director. I don't know that he's a target so much as an influence, but this movie does riff on Rashomon, Seven Samurai, and movies like that that are by now really famous. The tale of this movie is, as I said, a folk tale. It involves, in fact, let me talk about the opening, because I think this is one of the most powerful openings of any movie I've ever seen. It's very memorable. One of the few scenes I really remember and think on quite often. It involves a shot of a hut out in a forest, and very slowly, over time, as the first shot is a long shot, you see emerge from the bushes a bunch of men. You later come to see that they're soldiers or bandits or something like that. You're not sure at first. But they go into the hut, and they're very hungry, and what do they see in the hut? Two women. Well, what happens is absolutely devastating and horrific. This, to me, is one of the great anti-war scenes of basically any movie I've ever seen, and I do think this is about war. This is a typical war scene because, you know, wars, people usually think, well, two opposing armies fighting against each other. No, most wars ever fought are sieges of cities, or it's outright raids like this one involving looting, pillaging, unfortunately rape, and kidnapping, and that's what you've got going on here. So the two women in the hut are raped and then killed. Their hut is burned down, and then their black cat from their house comes up to them, and you can see maybe the black cat actually tries to eat them. Now, the movie doesn't show you that much of the devouring of the corpses, but it's implied and it's a little disgusting. That's important, though, because this black cat comes up repeatedly in the movie as the two women seem to turn into two spirits who are related to or might be black cat-like spirits. What happens is that these two women who are killed by the samurai, they end up hunting samurai. They lure them in, they seduce them, and then they eventually kill them and drink their blood. They vow to do this to some unknown god, and they're part of the spirit world. So you see several of these samurai lured in by the women who by this point are siren-like figures. They're killed off in their greed and their lust. They're given to that, and then they die. And then the movie shifts to its main storyline, which is a young man who is the lone survival of a great battle, and he's a wild-looking man. He seems even a bit coward-like. He survives the war. He goes back to the local lord or emperor in Kyoto in Japan, and this lord or emperor asks him, go kill these monsters, whoever they are, that are slaying my men in Kyoto. Now, it turns out, and of course this is a folklore fairy tale, so anything can happen, that this young man is actually the husband and the son of the two women. One of the women is his wife, and one of the women is his mother. And he's going back to his old homestead, which he doesn't know was burned down. Now you've got a family drama involving a living man and the spirits or ghosts of his mother and his wife, who are sort of black cat-like. Now, what I love about this movie, one of the things I love, is the atmosphere. This movie has a magical, mystical, almost a perfect, haunting folktale, fairy tale-like atmosphere. There's lots of chiaroscuro shots where you see figures in white, but they're barely on the screen, and then most of the screen is black. Of course, some of the action in this movie takes place at night when these two spirits are luring in the samurai. And then the soundscape is just gorgeous and haunting as well. I had my great headphones on, and really the soundscape may be even better than the visuals in this movie, which might surprise those of you who have already seen it, but listen to the HD version. It's absolutely gorgeous, especially not just the music, but the sound effects that are created in the bamboo forest where the two spirit women lead the men into. And that's the other part of this I like. You know, the bamboo forest in Kyoto, I was actually there. I visited it. In fact, I watched this movie, then I went to Kyoto on a trip, went to the bamboo forest just west of the city, and then came back, and then I rewatched this movie, and I thought, oh, I've seen this. I've been there, and it makes a total amount of sense to see these bamboo forests featured in such a haunting way in this movie. In fact, when I was there, brief story, the trees started to shake, and big loud explosions were happening when we were in the bamboo forest. I thought, what's going on? Turned out it was an earthquake. This was in about 2018 in the summer. Big earthquake, 5 point something on the Richter scale. So I was in the bamboo forest when it happened. Then I watched this movie. A little creepy. As well featured here is the Rashomon Gate, which is also featured in the classic movie Rashomon by Kurosawa. So this movie must be commenting on Rashomon in some way. Here the Rashomon Gate is intact. This is taking place in Japan's past. And at that gate is where the samurai run into the spirit women. There is where the spirit women are entrapping the samurai at this famous gate in the capital city, at least at one time, Kyoto, Japan. Now, part of this movie is featuring the young man who returns from the battle as a lone survivor. We see he's kind of a cowardly guy and gets lucky killing the last great warrior, this big bearded figure who he's cut the head off of. And he seems to, promote himself when he comes back with the head of this warrior. Nevertheless, we know he's a little bit cowardly, but he's going to try to slay these monsters, as it were. At first, he is deluded. He doesn't notice that the spirit women are his wife and his mother. That's a little bit strange. When I was first watching this movie, I was confused by that, but I think he's just plain delusional, and the spirit women are able to cloak themselves somehow in his vision. Eventually, though, they are revealed to him, and he gets a little tough, he gets a little aggressive, he wants to take them out, but the wife, his wife, longs for him, and so there's a whole sequence in this movie, about 20 or 30 minutes long, a bit of a love story as these two lovers, one dead and one alive, get back together for a brief reunion of sorts. And then his great challenge is to confront his wife as a dead spirit who may not be human, and his mother as a dead spirit who may not be human. There's a great moment where he says to them, I don't care what you are, I just care that you look like my wife and my mother. What's this movie about? I have to say, sometimes with Japanese movies, I'm never quite sure, and I'm a little hesitant because I don't know Japanese culture that well. However, I think people from all over the world can watch and appreciate this movie. That's usually what happens with folk tales and fairy tales. They can be understood in a generalized way. What's this movie about then? It seems to be about the past, definitely haunting the present, especially tragedies and war tragedies like what happens at the beginning of the movie with the two men killed, haunting the present, killing off men in the present, and continuing to sort of pervert the local area where they inhabit. And you can't get rid of the past. War is devastating. Here you see the aftermath of the war. And you know what? That's exactly what's going on in Rashomon as well, a movie that comes out right after World War II. I mean, the Kurosawa version. With this movie in 1968, talking about the Rashomon Gate, I think it's also could be about World War II, at least in a general sense, the aftermath of wars and the devastating effects they have on landscapes, on people, on the personal lives of people who lose loved ones, like the young man who stars in this movie. And the spirit women in this movie represent the past, the tragic past, always rushing in and coming into the present and messing with it and trying to kill it, or at least haunting it. So you've got history, the bloody history, the opening scene of this movie, sort of invading the present always, and always haunting the present, and thereby the future, of course. And the worst of all, this is a very dark movie for these spirit women. There is no recompense, there is no salvation, no justice is possible. This movie is a great lament on those things, that you can't have salvation, and that you can't get justice. The injustices that were done at the beginning of this movie, you can't get them back. You can never redo the past, and you can never get back at those who attacked you, killed you, raped you, and so on. So there's no justice in an ultimate sense, and that's what this young man, this young soldier who returns from war, has to confront. This is a horror movie. It's a slow, beautiful, at times majestic-looking horror movie. Very haunting as well. There aren't going to be scares, but there will be some very potent moments for you. I really like the ending of this movie, especially. Although, as I said, it's quite dark. Now, literally, it's dark with chiaroscuro. The themes are dark as well. Now, that can't be all this movie is about, and I'm sure some of you have seen it. What do you think of Kuroneko? Please leave us a comment. Please give us your ideas about what you see in this movie, how it relates to the real world, to history, and so on. I'd really like to see all the creative interpretations you have. And please subscribe to this channel for more great movie content. Thank you and have a great day.